Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of RV on AV. I'm Rich Ventura, the Vice President of B2B for Sony Electronics, and excited to have everybody back. We took a little hiatus this last month or so to let everybody enjoy a little bit of your summertime. And we are back with a vengeance and just, kicking off the fall. It's a great, nice sunny day out here in Minnesota, and hopefully everybody else is enjoying your day. We've got a great topic today. We're going to be talking about returning to the office and how companies are returning and planning that. And just a fantastic panel, which I'll start out to introduce here very quickly. We've got TEC MAN Coman, the Chief Technology Officer for PTS Consulting. Clint Hoffman, President for Kramer Electronics North America, and Zaki Khan, Product Manager from SkyKit. And I can't wait till you guys hear a little bit about what SkyKit is doing with SkyKit Turf. It's some amazing stuff. So I want to welcome up the panel here and maybe give each of you just a quick couple of minutes, talk a little bit about what you do in your organization. And I think those who don't know Pete, and I'll start with Pete on my top right, those who don't know Pete, he's definitely someone you need to know about as we're talking about this return to the office and a lot of the things that companies are doing. Pete, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, thanks, Rich. And yourself?
Oh, outstanding. So, Pete, tell us about what you do.
Sure. Yep. Be glad to. Thank you, Rich. Really appreciate being asked to be on this panel today. It should be an exciting event. And look, so I'm the Chief Technology Officer for PTS, and we're based here in New York City, as you might be able to tell from the skyline behind me. But what we really describe ourselves as digital workplace experience designers. So maybe in the past we were AV consultants and IT consultants, security consultants, and so on, but we think those days are very much numbered, and we focus on the overall experience of the workplace. And in particular, what we focus on is the technology aspect. So that digital transformation that's happening at the moment. So we look at a workplace as a whole. We look after all the design services, everything from AV to lockers to digital signage, you name it, desk booking systems, room booking systems. So everything that basically touches the network, we're involved with, we're designing, we're consulting, and we're helping our clients implement the latest, greatest technology to create a better experience for their people.
Perfect. Thanks, Pete. And we're going to be talking a lot about this during this conversation today, so it's awesome having you on board. Clint Hoffman from Kramer. Clint, great seeing you as always.
Yep. Thank you for having me here, Rich. I appreciate it. I'm Clint Hoffman. I'm the president of Kramer North America. Kramer is a manufacturer in the Pro AV space since 1981, but we're also going through quite a bit of a transition right now. We were acquired and our founder retired in February, so we are now owned by a private equity firm, and we are changing pretty much everything except the name of the company. And we're a company that used to make a lot of black boxes for the Pro AV industry, and now we're like many other companies, we're transitioning into a new era where these things are all going to be appliances on the network that we sell, and we're going to have more software than we are hardware in the future. And it's very exciting times, and that's who we are.
Excellent. Well, Clint, thanks for joining us. And Zaki Khan from SkyKit. And as I mentioned earlier, those who don't know who SkyKit is, be ready to hear some great stuff, especially about the SkyKit Turf product. Zaki, welcome.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here and very excited about this discussion. So Zaki Khan, I'm product manager here, one of the product managers here at SkyKit. And, we originally started out as a digital signage solution organization. And as the market evolved, as needs evolved, we've expanded into solutions that involve the workplace experience. So things involving room booking, desk booking, visitor and employee check-in. And we're expanding even beyond that to include things for administrators trying to manage a fleet of devices on a digital signage network with our SkyKit controlled offering. So really excited to share what we have, and excited to discuss some of these topics with the rest of the panel here. So
perfect. Well, no, this is I think a really apropos target topic right now. We're all talking about how we're coming back to the office. Some companies are saying they're not coming back to the office. We hear some of that as well. So we've got to really balance how are we supporting our employees and our customers when they come into our environments. We do this, and I think the term flexible workspaces has been like I don't say, I think that's been the topic everyone's been talking about for forever here. And, Pete, I remember in our conversation when I was in New York a while back, we were talking about how workplaces have to become more flexible. What does that really mean to you?
What does it mean to me? Having a flexible workspace. Okay, let me describe it like this. We believe, or I believe, that a workplace should be like a Tesla. So you buy a Tesla, and that vehicle only gets better, from that moment in time, where other cars kind of go backwards, or they don't improve at all. Where a Tesla is constantly being updated. There's always improvements that are being rolled out, and the software updates are being pushed out, so you get better range, better performance out of the vehicle. We believe that a workplace should be like that, and to do that, you need to have that flexibility, because what happens is that when a workplace is designed, it's then procured, it's built and implemented, and programmed and commissioned, then everyone walks away, and that the workplace stays stuck in time from that moment that everybody left the project. And yet the workplace, or the people and the business, continues to adapt, but the workplace doesn't adapt with it. It stays exactly as it was in that point in time. So for us, what flexibility is actually having a workplace that is growing and moving and adapting with the business's needs and requirements. And if that's flexible spaces, so being able to repurpose a room, for example, like you find that you've got not enough huddle spaces, for example. If you have a forward-thinking client that gets the cabling in place, and we can look at a space and say, well, we could use this space for 3 or 4 different purposes, and make sure we get cabling and the infrastructure in place to actually transform that room, not overnight, but to transform that room at a later date and time. That gives the client the flexibility, right? So that's what I'm saying. Forward thinking, lots of planning, making the space adaptable, and a big driver or an enabler of all that is actually putting as much of your equipment on the network as possible, and using that IT infrastructure there to give you that flexibility.
No, and I think that is, you hit one thing that was dead on is, and I think we've all noticed this as companies have come back to the workplace. They left their offices a year ago and they came back. The office looks identical, doesn't it? The only difference might be there might be more dust, maybe a monitor or 2 missing, a couple chairs missing because people brought them home, but their office looks the same as what they left it as. And I think that's that evolution that we're looking at. And Zaki, I look at specifically what Turf is doing and what you guys are doing at SkyKit. I mean, the flexible workplace is like right in your wheelhouse for what you're building.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want to make it seamless for people who are working remotely but want to come into the office when they want to collaborate. And we want to provide the tools and the resources that people and employees need. So for example, if I'm coming into the office on Thursday, I want to be able to book a desk, or I want to know that some of my peers are coming in on Thursday as well, so we can collaborate. So having that insight and be able to leverage the tools within the office to book the spaces that we need and book the desks that we need. So I think that's really important, and especially providing the flexibility, as you say, because some organizations want to have the hybrid experience, and some organizations want to be fully back in the office. So
yeah. So Clint, when we look at, one of the things you mentioned is Kramer, you're evolving the technology, a lot of the changes you guys are making. So Clint, how are you looking at this new flexible workspace when you're looking at the products and platforms and solutions that you're offering from Kramer?
Yeah, so we basically have identified what we're referring to as four mega trends. And we're basing the future product roadmap, the new product roadmap of Kramer on those mega trends. One of those mega trends is that it's a hybrid world now. Another is seamless technology. When we're using our phones and ordering an Uber or ordering something off of Amazon, it just works, and it works easily, intuitively, and fast. When we walk into a boardroom, conference room, classroom, or we try to use the monitor that's on the wall in our office, not necessarily always the case. So seamless technology, the whole hybrid concept, and then something we call always on collaboration, because that's where we're headed as a society, is the ability to collaborate from any place, anytime, anyway, immediately. So we're building a product roadmap on those three. The other fourth one is mission critical communications, but the first three are the ones relative to this conversation.
Okay. Well, and Clint, you kind of touched on the next thing I want to talk about, and that was collaboration in UCC. I think we're starting to take it for granted. It's there. It's always there, right? And some are even saying has it become a commodity for us, right? If you don't have it, can you even function as an organization? So how has collaboration really changed since, we looked at it, what it was pre-pandemic, right? And then we looked at what it was like last year. Today, how much has collaboration really changed?
Well, quite a bit, actually. And of course, the pandemic is a key influencer in that. We used to make devices, hardware that could augment some of the Zoom and Teams and other collaborative software programs functionality. They don't need our help anymore. The amount of influx of capital that they've got now, and the changes that they've made so rapidly, those products now can function very well on their own. So now it's up to us to find a way to enable the connection and the operation to those in our workspace to make that as seamless as possible. There's a famous video that is out there. It's called a video conference in real time. It's pretty humorous, but it's kind of an example of where we were, and hopefully we're progressing to a point where we just walk in the room. The room understands who we are without us having to do anything or say anything, and sets itself up for us and connects us to our call.
What do you mean we don't have to do the can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you see my screen anymore?
I would hope that we're going in that direction. We're not there yet, though.
So, Pete, how much has collaboration really changed the workspace? I mean, you have to be really seeing a massive change in what those workspaces are looking like now.
Absolutely. And look, even what we found ourselves, so pre-COVID, if we were on a call, we would go into the boardroom, we would sit around the table and we would meet. And then once COVID hit, everyone started working remotely, and suddenly we started taking our calls from our desk, from behind our laptops, our PCs. And then what happened is that once people started returning to the office, because we were so used to now taking these calls from our desk, even we found in our office where there'd be 3 or 4 of us on the same call, all sitting at our desk, right? So, and it was just something that you got used to, right? Like, and it was like, hang on, we there was a bit of a wake up call for us, and we're like, hang on, what are we doing here? Let's go to the boardroom, right? And we, now we sit around the boardroom table and do that to try and sort of get things back to normal. But I think a lot of this is actually going to stick. I think you're going to find we're already seeing with our clients who are returning to the office, instead of going into a private meeting space, they're on Teams, Zoom, whatever platform they decide to use. They're on these calls in an open plan workspace, and people are walking around. It's like, you're not at home anymore. You can't just walk around as if you're at home when you're not bothering anybody. So I think it's going to take a bit of a readjustment, but I also think that potentially we're actually going to see maybe less meeting spaces as a result, where people continue to want to still meet from their desk.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like we are going to have to reteach our workforce how to work together. I mean, you're so used to sitting on, who hasn't sat on a video call and they have a nice dress shirt on, but they're in a pair of shorts and sandals? You're gonna be able to do that in the office, right? So we've got to reteach the whole way to work together in a building.
Yeah,
Zaki,
it just became a learned behavior.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. It is a learned behavior that we've got to undo. But at the same time, some companies are, and we've seen some of the announcements recently, even some companies are allowing people to say, you know what, you can work from home anywhere in the world now. And they've really it's almost like we're starting to get this, that nomad workforce that's starting to potentially happen more and more in our industries. So Zaki, when we look at what you guys have done with Turf, and maybe take a couple of minutes and talk about what SkyKit Turf is, because I mentioned it a couple of times, and it might be good for everybody to understand what Turf is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted Turf to be, an immersive workplace experience solution. So if you think about an experience where you're walking to the office, the first thing you do is you want to check into the office. Companies want people to check in so they know who's coming in their office, especially during times of COVID. So, and taking that experience beyond just checking in, but also providing an experience of using the collaboration spaces within the office and the desks that can be reserved within the office. So maybe one day I want to reserve a desk for the full day, I can do that, or take advantage of some of the collaboration spaces with my other team members to have a whiteboarding session or just be on site and have a collaboration session, and provide, our solution provides status for the meeting rooms with a, 10-inch touch display that will sit in front of the conference room and provide you status of that conference room, whether it's booked or not, and the schedule for that conference room. And it also gives you the ability to book that conference room on demand. So whether you're collaborating for a team meeting or if you need to book the room on demand, you have that option as well. So we want to bring that all together with an entire solution that you can provide to your team members and in your office space. So it provides a really nice collaboration experience for those people who are coming back to the office.
Cool, yeah, and I think it's part of what we talked about when I asked Clint at the beginning how much things have changed. There's more and more of this consolidation of where we need those tools to be able to communicate together. And I remember on one of these RVonAVs, we had Joey D'Angelo was on this, and he was saying there's like a million different apps out there, and we really need to see consolidation and how things are working together. And it's good to see companies looking at tools like this. One thing I want to remind everybody who's listening in this, please, if you've got questions, post them. Definitely post those questions in the questions tab. We will try our hardest to get to them during the conversation, but we'll also make sure afterwards we get information out there as well. So coming back a little bit on the collaboration side a little bit more, and we were talking about, the different ideas, something that someone asked me, and I thought it was a very interesting comment. Do we think we're ever going to be at a point where remote workers are on video 100% of the time? So because they're not in the office, you still want engagement with everybody. Does that mean that person's now got a video camera and they're shining on the screen the whole time, and you can lean over and talk to Pete, even though Pete's working from home, and you can have a conversation? Do we ever see that level happening, or do you think it's going to still be kind of like what we are today, dialing somebody up? I'll throw it out to all three of you, kind of see what your thoughts are on something like this.
Yeah, I think, there's an expectation within our organization, regardless of where you're working, and admittedly, like, people have to, sometimes they're out on site, sometimes they're maybe even on leave and they're joining a call. There's an expectation that we all have our video turned on. And a lot of our clients have the same expectation as well. And we will be on calls ourselves, and everyone else will have their video off. We'll have our video on. And you find that what ends up happening is that once others see that you've got your video on, they start to turn their video on because they kind of feel a bit guilty that theirs is not on. So I think it's better. Otherwise we might as well just huddle around a table and use our phones and put on loudspeaker. We want to try and have as much personal connectivity or interconnection as possible.
Pete, how much is that cultural though? Not all, I deal with a lot of conversations with customers all over the world, And I agree with you. It's that video, getting on video, it's that building that personalization, but how much of that is cultural? Is it other cultures don't want to be on video and they prefer doing audio only?
Yeah, I'm not so, I can't really answer how much of that's cultural. The majority of our work out of this office is regional, as in North America. We make it cultural within our office to turn your video on. I also think I think it could also be more generational. The younger generation aren't particularly shy about FaceTiming someone or uploading a video to TikTok or Instagram and things like that. So being in front of a camera for them is quite natural. They've kind of grown up with it. Where I think maybe the older generation, it's maybe it's a little bit more confronting. But not sure about the different cultures or regions around the world. I can't really comment on that.
So Clint, if we're looking at people always being on video, I mean, what's that impact from an infrastructure perspective? Because obviously getting video all over the place and really supporting that's a pretty big issue.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, I know that oftentimes, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. The actual Wi-Fi network in our own facility is not the strongest. So, sometimes we have to turn our video off in order to make sure that we continue to be in the call. So yeah, there's an infrastructure issue, and I don't really know the boundaries of that, but yeah, you got to be robust in order to do that. And also, I will point out that cultural, not cultural, multitaskers like to leave their camera off so that people can't tell that they're actually doing 3 things at one time and listening to you at the same.
Yep. So I think maybe to add this a little bit, Clint, as we look at this whole idea of video everywhere, there's more than just video that we have to worry about. Audio is a big play in this too. And if I look at some of the different products I know I've seen from Kramer over the years, are there things that you guys as an organization are working on to help support a lot of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the technology, and it's not necessarily new. It's just, the technology for DSP and audio, it's all digitized now. It's all software based, and it is really, well, we have a tiny little amplifier with DSP in it now that, back in the day, you would have had to have a huge box. So yeah, things are advancing, and on the audio front as well as the video front at the same time.
Okay. So Zaki, when I look at what you guys are doing with Turf, and then you add in also the SkyKit digital signage, it's really starting to help connect the dots of what we see the future office looking like. Whether you walk in the door and you're getting guest registration to signage and stuff like that. Can you walk through just a little bit of how you guys see that journey happening with what you're building?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see the experience evolving from as you're saying, if somebody checks in, trying to personalize that experience with digital signage as well. So if you can imagine checking in and having the screen in front of a larger screen in front of the entryway saying welcome, or customizing the experience for a customer or a guest that's coming into the office with the digital signs throughout the office. And in addition to that, just creating a sort of collaborative and a way to communicate with your team members within the office. So tying all that together, and the displays that we use for our meeting rooms that sit in front of the meeting rooms can also double as digital signage. So at times when they're not being used for displaying meeting status, they can be leveraged to communicate messaging to your team members, customers. So we kind of see that bringing the two together as an entire platform.
Okay. So Clint, within Kramer AV, I know that you've got solutions for classrooms, and you've got all these different ways that you're taking for collaboration and BYOD devices and control and everything like that. We've seen that, obviously, that modification or that change in the classroom. How's that happening in corporate space as well?
Rich, can you elaborate on that just a tiny bit more to help me understand?
Yeah. So Yeah, so if we look at, I always look at a lot of the solutions that Kramer does in the classroom for BYOD, and being able to use multiple devices for control and pulling and collaborating and pulling data down, right? Are you using a lot of the same ideas and solutions in corporate? Are you seeing corporate maybe doing it a different way than education has been doing? I always like looking at education because in a lot of terms, they've challenged the way that we've done things, and corporate has looked at a lot of the ideas that come out of education on ways to engage differently.
You are 100% correct. And, we sell an awful lot of wireless collaboration products to education. And then together, they and we learn more things that we can do to make that better. Those do then transition to the boardrooms and the conference rooms around the country. But it's always starts in the education. They're more of an early adopter in that case. And with regards to the control and the data and so forth, it's there's Edward Demings was the father of quality, and he had a saying, in God we trust, all else bring data. So, like, part of the future for us, whether it's education, whether it's corporate, whatever it is that our devices, once they're connected in our software to the network, we need to collect as much data as we possibly can, and that's the way we are designing our products. Because then some human being can take that data and make better decisions about how to build the next 50 classrooms or the next, corporate headquarters, boardrooms, and conference rooms.
Yeah, and I think you hit one of my favorite things in the world, and that's data. I mean, yeah, that is, I think, probably the thing that has evolved AV. And I think, Pete, you said it, you're no longer an AV consultant or a digital signage consultant or an IT consultant, right? You're kind of consulting everything. And data has got to be one of the most important things for you to use.
Absolutely. Having that data, or like Clint touched on, it allows people to make informed decisions. So you're not necessarily going to get it right every time, but if you've got that data coming in, you're constantly collecting it and aggregating it. You can look back on it historically, or even in real time, and make better decisions within the workplace. I know. I mean, we've just recently completed a project at Hudson Yards where everything is on the client's network. It's a totally converged network: AV, IT, security, lockers, digital signage. We've got about 15, 16 different technologies that sit on the client's network. And what happens, we collect all this data. We have analytical sensors as well, the BMS we connect to, everything. And we grab all this data, it gets aggregated, and then it gets pushed out to the cloud. Well, not so much a cloud. They have a data lake actually over in Europe, and it's a European bank, and they store all this information, and they're rolling these systems out at various sites around the world. And so they're getting all this information where they can look at it, and they can look at how efficient their workspace is, or how inefficient the workspace is. I mean, as I said, you're not always going to get it right. And like a Tesla, if we're working for that constant improvement, we can constantly update the workplace to have a better workplace experience. But the only way we can do that is by collecting the data.
And Pete, obviously, I guess you have a Tesla, right?
You know what, Rich? I don't even have an American driver's license. That's yeah. So, but if I did have a car, it would be a Tesla.
Okay. Well, it's funny that you're using the example of the Tesla, because it does actually it truly is, as we've talked about, how that has changed how automobiles have been used and how we're using them and stuff like that. And you talk about the cloud, and I think the cloud has changed everything, not just IT, AV, digital signage, it has changed everything and anything that when we talk about things. And it's because of that need and that desire for data, and is understanding what the data means and understanding how we can use the data. And I think Zaki, when you were talking about turf, majority of what you're talking about is data. I mean, it is pulling data on usage and everything like that. When you're talking to customers and you're presenting this idea of what turf is and things, I'm assuming that's one of the first things you talk about is the data and how they can use it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the number one thing we get asked. How can we get insight into how our space is being used, whether that's the conference rooms or the desks, and even checking in, like how many people are checking in on a certain day. Is there a trend that we're seeing in terms of how the space is being used and how many people are in the space? So absolutely, that is right now. That's the one of the first things that we get asked from a customer. So.
Cool. And I think one of the key things for us too, when we look at data and we start talking about is it's future planning, right? It's understanding. I mean, I think we learn more about what we're going to do from our past. Don't dwell too long, but the more information you have about the past, the more you can make decisions in the future. I'm kind of curious what all of you think the workplace is going to look like when we go into 2022. I don't want to use the term post-pandemic because we have no idea when post-pandemic is, but really thinking about, we have to at some point come to whatever that normal is, that new normal. And I even hate that term. I was hoping we'd get rid of that term by now. But really what we see 2022 looking like as we go into our spaces. And, Clint, I'll start with you. What are some things that you're seeing about the office space, the corporate workspace, the hybrid environment that we're going to see as we go into 2022?
Well, I don't want to dumb it down or oversimplify it, and I also don't want to overgeneralize it. So, with all those precursors in place, it's really, I think, about the ability to have certain parts of your team work at home on certain days. I don't think every single member of the team who used to report to office, and again, I'm not trying to be too generalistic here, but is going to report to the office every single day like they did pre-pandemic. I think we're going to have some internal meetings and we're going to figure out, okay, what days can people in this team be home and what days can people in this team be home and what days should we all be together, because there is a certain amount of human interaction that is important to the morale and the focus and the energy of the company and to the human beings themselves. So I think it really boils down to, technology aside, we've been talking about that for a while now. The actual workplace itself will boil down to, having more flexibility for the folks to be not in the office every single day. I'm thinking that's where we're headed. And it's kind of like Amazon came along and malls were impacted, but you can still go to Costco. And so the world finds, I won't use the words that you don't like, Rich, but the world finds a new balance. And it's not radically changed, but it's improved and different.
Yeah. So Peter, how about you? What do you think?
Well, I think we got to remember that this change, and I hate those terms that you used before as well, Rich, so I'm not going to use them. But this change was forced upon us. It was we were suddenly overnight. We were working remotely, and we just had to make do. We had to make it happen. I just don't believe that the working styles from the past 200 years, whatever, where people come together for a reason, right? People come together to learn from each other. People come together to be inspired by each other. There's reasons there's a lot to be had by having people coming together in the one place. Now, will some of this forced, new behavior sort of stick? Probably. I think we're able as organizations to better cater for flexible and remote working. But on a whole, I really don't see us moving away from a model that has worked for for a long period of time. And what we have to really understand is what we've got to stop doing is we've got to stop trading inspiration for productivity. I just hear people say, I'm so more productive when I work from home. Yep, so am I. Is that the right thing for the organization for me to be working from home? No, it's not, because we have young people who are coming through that we need to train up, we need to educate, we need to mentor. And most of us have learned from others teaching us, showing us the ropes, showing us how to do a particular task and be beside them to guide them and mentor them through their career. If we have this model of everyone working remotely, we're going to have a generation that's going to have a skill set, a lost skill set. And we can't have that. We can't afford that. So I think whether it is 3 days a week, 4 days a week, whatever, I still think that in-person collaboration and meeting is vitally important to the majority of businesses. Granted, some businesses, it may be fine, but I think on a whole, we really need to be coming back together, and hopefully we don't move too far away from where we were post-COVID, sort of pre-COVID.
So how much do you think, Pete, thinking through that, this whole term of the great resignation that's happening right now, people are leaving jobs in companies. I mean, how much do you think this is a short term? I mean, it's a weird discussion, right? Is like you're going, is this something that we could see happening on and on? But I think it's also impacting what we're talking about right now, and that's the work environment.
I don't see it any different to the way it was pre-COVID. Everyone had a choice. You're not forced to work for anyone. Mm-hmm. You make a choice who you work for, and these people, if their organization sort of mandates that they come back to the office, they have a choice, right? They can choose not to. So I think with all these things and all the other implications that have been brought in of late, that I really believe it's about choice. And some organizations can adopt maybe a remote model more so than others. It's certainly not our preferred direction as an organization, because we, like I said before, we don't want to trade inspiration for productivity. I would rather see and grow the young people in our workforce, because if I can help grow them, then they help me in the long term, and then I become more productive as a result, not just sitting there, sort of firing off 1,000 emails every day. I don't think it's a long-term solution.
Okay. So Zaki, I mean, you're obviously a lot of the solutions you guys are building around is really about what that new workplace is going to look like. I mean, what are you seeing? Anything different than you've heard so far or what we've shared?
No, I'm, just to kind of reflect and speak to what, both Pete and Clint have said. I think what we're seeing from customers, that there is an aspect of collaboration that still exists and they still want to have, in their workplace. I mean, I can speak to our own office as well in terms of, there's days when we want to just get together with our engineers and do a whiteboarding session. And the ability to have that place to go and collaborate is paramount, I think, in certain situations where, you're going through a whiteboarding diagram. It's really hard to communicate that over video conference. So, but, giving them the flexibility to also work when they need to work, where they want to work is also important. So I think we're seeing, organizations coming to us, and they're really looking at the workplace as really a collaboration, and, sort of even to the point where, they use it as a conference center for having guests or, small events, willing, if it's willing, and using the conference rooms as a place to bring people together to collaborate.
Okay. So taking a little bit of a different spin on here, and I kind of want to chat a little bit about the tools and technology and hardware, software, things like that you're seeing going into this new collaborative environment we have. Have you seen in your conversations or talking with customers, what you've seen? Are there certain tools, products, solutions, stuff like that you're seeing more and more of a lean towards? Maybe I'll start with you, Pete, to kind of see, are there certain things that you're hearing more and more conversations around? Throw it out there.
Yeah, we're seeing, I mean, Clint touched on it earlier, is that I think in general, our industry is moving away from hardware and is becoming a lot more software focused. And a lot of these tools that allow us to collaborate anytime, anywhere, and collaborate in real time. I mean, these are software tools. They're cloud-based software tools. I mean, we have, something like the tools that we use. on a regular basis. Obviously, Office 365. We use Microsoft Teams. We use BIM 360. We use Bluebeam, all Mirrorboard. All these tools. They're all real-time collaboration tools where if we are remote, then we can be working together more efficiently than in the past, where we would actually have to, send email files backwards and forwards to each other. So I think that what happened with COVID, it just accelerated these technologies. They were around, they were there, but it was like, well, do we really need to invest in those platforms? And we've what happened with COVID, it's really forced our hands, and we have gone down that path. And I think that most of us won't sort of look back from that. I think we'll continue to use those tools, but I think most of them for us have all been software based more so than hardware.
Okay. Clint, how about you?
I agree 100%. The cloud is, if we want to collect all this data and we want to, put everything on the network, the cloud is a central point of importance in that evolution. And then there's the question of on-prem versus off-prem versus the cloud, and the question of security comes up. And the cloud, the biggest security threat a company has is that USB port on a laptop. It's not the cloud. The cloud is really secure. So I think that on-prem cloud argument is really in the past. I'm not talking about the FBI or the Homeland Security, but I think that's in the past, and I think we're going to see that migration, which just enables so many more things for us. And so I agree 100% on that point.
Yeah, and I think for Kramer Connect has been such an important solution towards as you're moving towards that. Correct, Clint?
100%. We built Kramer Connect as the world's first cloud-based control solution. Actually, let me change that for a second. We built a data analytics engine that, oh, by the way, is a control solution. So
okay,
so that was the purpose behind it. Was you can't out volume up the competition. You hit a button, a command goes out that raises a volume on a particular device. It's the same command. I can send it, somebody else can send it. But if we do it the way we're doing it, where it's originating in the cloud, then every single action that occurs can be captured, and then we can put that in a giant data lake, like Pete said, and we can figure out how to extract what's important out of that and use that to make better decisions.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's a perfect example of a hardware company finding a way to utilize the cloud and the software to really deliver more value. And I think that's part of what you were saying at the beginning, Clint, that as Kramer's evolving, you're seeing more of that. I know we are at Sony, as we're evolving, we're seeing more of those software solutions and those integrations that are needed to, ease. I always tell everybody our job number one is to be easy to work with, and number two is to deliver solutions. And that's with our partnerships and things like that. So as you're looking at that, it's great to see you guys are doing that. So Zaki, what about you? You guys live in software every day. And it was great. I was in your offices a week or so ago, and it was great just seeing some of the different tools that you're doing. Is there anything out there that you want to call out that you've seen?
A lot of things that we're seeing, coming up here is leveraging things like sensors to provide a better experience with either digital signage or even the workplace experience solution. So if you imagine, aspects of, walking into a conference room and us being able to detect that someone is in that conference room. And maybe after a certain period of time, if someone is not in that conference room, being able to free up the conference room for somebody else to use. So leveraging sensors in that fashion, but then also with digital signage in retail spaces where you may have, somebody walk by a sensor and it sort of triggers a retail experience for that person. So I think sensors is going to be something that is really interesting for us, especially in 2022. And it's very interesting. It's something on our roadmap that we're looking at for providing some real serious sensor solutions for our turf product.
So as we look at what we're doing, and a lot of we talked about here has been talking about data. We talked about the here and now and things we're looking at. But I think all of this ends up being how companies start setting out their vision for the future. And we go back to this whole thing of a hybrid environment, a flexible environment, so on and so forth. And I know, Pete, you've talked about some of the ideas you were talking about could be a short term. Some companies are talking about long term on this. So do you think companies need to be building out a 2-year plan, a 5-year plan, or are they just living in the here and now and hoping they get through it?
Well, I think with what's happened
It's a
over
loaded
the last
question.
sort of
It's a loaded question.
yeah, with what's happened over the last 18 months, like how do you plan more than 3 months out? Really, I mean, like
I know.
you don't know what's going to happen next. So I think gone are the days, especially of the 5-year plan. I mean, you can have, I think, a vision of where you want to take the organization. I get that, but I think this comes back to what we spoke about earlier, and that's having the flexibility to be able to adjust and adapt to whatever situation is presented to us. And that flexibility could be things like flexible furniture. It could be, flexible technology. But for us, to give the client our clients the most amount of flexibility, we believe that the right way to go about it, or right way to look at it, is to ensure that these solutions are able to be integrated, right? They're sitting on a network, the client's network. So they're all talking and working together. One of the things that we have done is deployed a software layer. So like, for instance, a standard project might have, 15, 16 different technologies in there. And with a lot of projects that we work on, we have this software layer that sits over the top, that's hardware agnostic, and it talks to all these systems. And that gives us flexibility as well, because a lot of the systems that get deployed into a workplace aren't necessarily designed to work with each other, to be integrated with each other. And this is where that software layer comes in, and that provides the flexibility. So we're finding that our clients are definitely wanting to create flexible workspaces, because they just don't know what's going to happen next. And are they all going to work from home again? Are they all going to be back in the office? And I just think that technology is a great enabler for that flexibility.
Okay. Clint, what do you think? I mean, it's like Pete said, it's hard to plan beyond 3 months. Just supply chain alone makes it difficult to plan beyond 3 months.
Well,
Any thoughts on your side?
Yeah, supply chains these days, that's our single biggest, that and logistics, the shipping, and it's going to be a problem, I think, throughout 2022. But that aside, I don't know how I could say it any better than Pete just said it. He nailed that.
Okay, perfect. So one of the things that I think, Pete, you've been on one of these before with me, and I can't remember if Clint, you as well. One of the things I always like asking about is technology that's excited you. And at the beginning stage, I said, what got you through COVID? Well, we haven't gone through COVID yet. So we're still dealing with it. But if you look at some of the technology from a personal side, but even from an industry side, what are maybe some cool technology or things that you've used and played around with? I've seen everything from, I think one person said the thing that saved their life was an air fryer. And I've heard others say an electric bicycle, and PlayStation 5 was a really popular one, but I think they were trying to convince me to get them a PlayStation 5. So really, what were some of those things, personal and work-wise, that tech that you've seen, that you've used, that's helped you get through a lot of what we've gone through the last year and a half now? Maybe I'll start with you, Zaki.
I will have to say, unfortunately, an air fryer. That was really me. That really helped me out. And I got a nice slow cooker too, so that was nice. But I think on the technology side, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but we've actually introduced a new 10-inch touch display that will be pairing with Turf, and we're really excited to see that kind of take off, especially at a time when it's really hard to get inventory. A lot of our competitors are dealing with inventory and backlog situations, but also we're introducing it at a very cost-effective price, where there's situations where our device is half the price of some of our competitors. So without sacrificing features and components. So we're really excited, and I'm really excited to kind of see that take off here.
Yeah, I got to see that when I was in the office. It was a pretty cool product to look at, and I was excited to see how business will go for you guys with that. Clint, how about
Absolutely.
yourself?
So I'm a big fan of the old Far Side comics. I don't know if you remember them or not, but there's one in
Oh yeah.
particular where there's a dog on a high wire above in a circus tent, juggling some cats and doing a hula hoop, and the caption reads, "High above the hushed crowd, Rex realized he was an old dog, and this is a new trick." And so, I'm a late adopter. I guess I'm an old dog. So Netflix. I actually used the pandemic to become a streaming person, and I got to watch a whole bunch of TV series from start to finish. You become obsessed. You watch 4 or 5 a night with your wife, but at home, it was probably me getting onto those services and getting into the new century. At work, and nobody's ever gonna believe this, but I'm going to go ahead and mention one of your products, Rich, and I'm doing it because I believe it, not because I'm trying to be self-serving to you. But your new edge analytic device, I think, is my favorite in our business right now. So,
Well, first off, on the far side comment, which is pretty funny, I have like the entire collection of Far Side books.
Oh my
I
God.
love
I
it.
have
Look up,
that sitting underneath my desk, and it's funny. Every once in a while, I have one of those, and I also have one with Calvin and Hobbes. And every once in a while, I just pull them out when I need to sit there and read through it and everything. So definitely agree with you on that, and I can't disagree on Edge Analytics because that was one of my favorite when I first came on board to Sony, and I sat and looked at things. That was the first thing I went and looked at, and it is a fantastic product. It really is, and it's like the perfect product for what we're dealing with right now, and we're trying to find more ways of selling it. So it's always a great thing when we can find ways to tie it into great partners' products as well. Pete, and it can't be a Tesla. I'm just going to tell you right now. I'm going to preface the comment. It can't be a Tesla.
Not a Tesla. Not a Tesla. Well, for me, so I've been coming into the office the whole time, so I didn't need any help getting through through COVID because everything was sort of business as usual. But I do have 2 products, a personal product and also a business related product. The personal product is, well, I'm a bit of a golfer, and I have the sensors that screw into the top of my grips on my golf clubs, and you put one on every single golf club, and then you pair it to your phone. And then what happens is that when you're out on the golf course, so it does GPS tracking, but what you do is you also you pair it to your Apple Watch or smartwatch. And what it does, it actually listens in for you hitting the golf ball. So first of all, when you take the club out of your bag, it knows what club you're pulling out of the bag. And then it's listening in, and you hit the golf ball and it goes, okay, well, you've just hit the golf ball. And then when you go up and play your next shot, it records how far you hit the shot, exactly where you hit it. And at the end of the round, it shows you, every shot by shot for the whole round, your average distances, how many greens you hit, how many putts you had, your score, everything. Everything is totally automated, and it's very, very accurate. So I love that new technology from a personal point of view. But from a business point of view, just last week, I saw a product called Modus VR, and it's basically a virtual environment. So you build spaces very quickly and easily. And especially for AV world, you can put screens on a wall, and you can explain to the client that maybe that screen needs to be bigger or smaller, or maybe this is what it would look like if there was 2 screens instead of 1. And then it has all the parameters in there. So like if you wanted to test to how far the microphone is going to cover, how much coverage you'll have in the room from the microphone, you turn that on and you have this bubble that appears and shows you that distance. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing software where you can build rooms very, very quickly, very accurately, work with your clients, and actually, so they totally understand what the end result is going to be. I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. Unfortunately, on the golf thing, you can't cheat anymore. So now you got your real score. No more sandbagging.
No more sort of kicking it out of the rough or anything like that, or miscounting putts. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Now you just need to have the chip inside the golf ball so you can find the golf balls. That's
Well,
always the biggest problem.
there is an Australian company called SportsCore who have developed a chip. It's a small ball that goes into a cricket ball at this stage, and it measures how fast the ball's traveling, the spin rate, all that kind of stuff. And they're just perfecting that at the moment. And I think the next sport they're going to target will be baseball. So you imagine all the analytics they're going to get out of putting a chip inside of a baseball and any other sport for that matter.
Yeah, and that'll be, that'll be a great product to bundle in with another Sony product called Hawkeye, which we use in that space, which is just.
I didn't realize that was a Sony product.
Yep, Hawkeye is a Sony company.
Go.
So, yeah. Well, I want to thank all of my panelists today. All of you. I just appreciate how much time you've gotten to spend with us. One thing really quick, just round robin. Best way to get a hold of each one of you, Pete.
The best way is probably to track me down on LinkedIn, I would say. So if you search for TEC MAN Coman, so TEC MAN, there it is right there. You can find me on LinkedIn and you can contact me there and DM me and we can start a conversation.
All right. Clint?
So LinkedIn, of course, but if you want to email me, my email address is choffman@Kramer with a K, KramerAV.com.
Excellent. And Zaki?
I will echo the LinkedIn approach. You can find me on LinkedIn, Zaki Khan, product manager at SkyKit. And my email address is zucky.khan@skykit.com.
Excellent. And I want to pull up the teaser slide. We definitely have another Tech Tuesday coming up fairly soon. We'll be talking about Bravia and our great partnership with Peerless AV. It's one you don't want to miss. And I can give you a little teaser. There'll be another RVonAV coming up not that long afterwards. And we'll be getting more information out about that right around the week of InfoComm. So look for some more, and we'll be sharing a lot of great topics out there as we continue to do this. So I appreciate everyone spending some time with us and have a fantastic rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.